2 in 10 adults live with a disability. What is a disability? A disability is categorized as a physical or mental condition that limits a person's movement, senses, or activities. In the book No Pity, Shapiro paints us a picture of little tiny Tim in the opening chapters of his book. This is exactly what the disability culture wants us to get away from. Disabled children were thought of as damaged goods who had to try harder to prove themselves worthy of charity and society's respect. Also, the idea that disability could be overcome was another problem. Disability is not something that can be cured. Disabled people do not want to hear, "You don't seem disabled at all." This undermines who individuals with disabilities are. They are human, they are equal, they have their own culture, and they are proud of it. And Judy Heumann, a teacher who was denied a teaching certificate because she was not able-bodied enough to evacuate her students, sued the education board. She was then granted a certificate and started the DIA, or the Disabled in Action. Deaf culture is an important part of disability culture as a whole. In 1890, deaf people were taught to speak, and oralism became the universal teaching method of the deaf. A group of deaf students fought to shut down Gallaudet University after the search committee wanted to elect the only non-deaf student. The students advocated for their equality, and they won. They appointed a deaf president. Another important change for the deaf community is that now students have to have a teacher who is proficient in sign language. Another important group was the Berkeley-based Disability Rights and Education Fund. Pamela Wright and Judy Heumann were two prominent figures in this group. This was the first office in Washington run by disabled individuals. Another main point from this chapter is George Bush Sr.'s campaign. He advocated for individuals with disabilities and promised to include them in the mainstream. He gained millions of votes from disabled individuals. Autism affects a huge amount of people in the United States. This chapter talks about all the new acts and programs put in place for people diagnosed with ASD, or Autism Spectrum Disorder. One was the Community Services for Autistic Adults and Children. This gave adults who had autism many new opportunities to work and support themselves. The fight against institutionalization was continued, and PCAs, or personal care attendants, were hired more often to give care in the home. This benefited both parties. A PCA now had a job, and the disabled individual saves a lot of money.
In 1990, the People First campaign began. This caused the closing of some state institutions and the beginning of sick and vacation leave. People started to avoid using words like retard and instead actually thought about the power of the words coming out of their mouths. The Association for Retarded Citizens even changed its name. Those with disabilities gained even more respect as society began to realize that, quote, anyone can be taught to make good choices, and you might need some help, but you can talk for yourself. The technology has also come a long way with machines. They can speak, move, touch, hear, and see. All these tools are possible, but some with disabilities accept their differences and would not change a thing. A few of these folks are grateful for their disability and love their life how it is. This is the true goal and direction of the future. Many post-acute rehab facilities for those with brain injuries morphed into nursing homes where they lost their basic rights. In 1992, 800 nursing homes for people with head injuries were used for an average stay of 51 days at $1,069 per day. Some are only allowed to stay until their insurance runs out. Then what? A phenomenal point is made when the book stresses how people with disabilities should fight for their right to stay in their own home. The life of a disabled person is absolutely no less a life than an able-bodied individual. This means it should not be treated as so. The Indianapolis Right to Life and disability activists fought to get the message out about assisted suicides and legal euthanasia. In 1972, the Death with Dignity bill allowed 90% of people living in state institutions might qualify with elimination. Simply because the disabled members of the community live their lives differently does not mean they are living wrong. An example is Jim, a man who was raised in a home for troubled children and expected to be perfect at everything he is told to do. His talent for mechanics is ignored due to not meeting expectations for keeping his room clean. Instead of giving Jim a chance to benefit society, he was crammed in an institution with prison inmates where his chance to live an independent and successful life did not exist. After strong advocacy from Shapiro, Jim's family began to realize that he was not as disabled as they once thought he was. The concept of treating those with disabilities the same as the rest of the society is thankfully beginning to spread.
In conclusion, look at the ability, not the disability. The shift of disability culture leads us to focus less on pitying those with disabilities and more on acceptance and the reality that they are prominent members of society, interests that unite disabled people and separate them from their non-disabled counterparts. This is exactly what is happening. Disabled people are coming together to fight for their rights.
Relationships, I don't know why they never work out and they make you cry, but the guy that says goodbye to you is out of his mind. You always did kinda drive me crazy, and it pissed me off 'cause I let it faze me, but I never wanted my time with you to end. Now I'm back in town for a day or two, and mostly I came back just to see you. I'm leaving now, but I don't wanna go. You don't need to change a thing about you, babe. I'm telling you, from where I sit, you're one of a kind. Relationships, I don't know why they never work out. They make you cry, but the guy that says goodbye to you is out of his mind.